Magnificent mountain estate rests peacefully beneath a vast, cloud-dappled sky. The living Buddha, Master Musan, raises a hand and asks about an inquiry into someone named Wei Yeonho. A historian with their hair in a top knot confirms their purpose, explaining they are compiling materials to document Wei Yeonho's history. With a sharp snap of his fan, Master Musan amusedly recalls Wei Yeonho, the radiant martial sovereign. The master speaks reverently of Wei Yeonho, calling him a benevolent man sent down by the Buddha himself. Pleased, the historian takes notes and asks what Wei Yeonho was like in his everyday life. Master Musan trembles as he considers the question of Wei Yeonho's usual behavior, leaving the historian confused. His kind facade shatters as his eyes glow, and he snarls that he can't go through with this. The historian stares in shock, barely able to process the master's sudden curse. Arg, the historian is violently thrown out of the Hubei Pen clan's residence. Supreme Elder Pang Doju furiously roars, questioning why a wretched person like the historian would dare to come here seeking information on Wei Yeonho. Standing over the fallen historian, Pang Doju gestures dismissively, continuing his angry tirade. He orders a bag of salt to purify the area, leaving the historian screaming in disbelief. A narration begins, describing a legendary, chivalrous warrior with long black hair who ended an era of chaos. This warrior, hailed as the greatest of all time, stands heroically overlooking a mountain range. The historian runs through a forest, wondering why everyone avoids talking about such a renowned hero. Determined, the historian continues their journey to uncover the truth. They steel their resolve, committed to the duty of documenting even the hidden, unspoken parts of history. Their quest leads them to a dilapidated, forgotten hut deep within the woods. Ha! The divine mad dog of the beggar sect erupts in laughter upon hearing that the historian was chased away from both Shaolin and the Pang clan. The historian explains that no matter where they went, the reaction was always the same the moment Wei Yeonho's name was mentioned. The divine mad dog grins knowingly, remarking that of course they would react that way. The historian is perplexed by his cryptic comment. The story flashes back 100 years to the prestigious Wei clan of Guangdong. A young man with messy black hair shifts in his bed with a soft sigh. This is a 12-year-old Wei Yeonho who declares his dream to become the strongest. A narration explains that there was once a boy who dreamed of becoming the greatest warrior under the heavens. Raised in a martial clan, he was taught the chivalry of warriors. Staring at a scroll bearing his ambition, he already knew the path to the top. That path was relentless effort, symbolized by a calloused hand over a floor littered with broken blades. Wei Yeonho sits up in bed, confidently stating that nothing comes without effort, regardless of talent. Lying back with a determined smile, he thinks effort is the only way. But the narration hints at a small problem. He gazes out the window at the brilliant rising sun. He sits up, facing the window, as if ready to begin his day. His eyes are filled with focus and determination. With a sudden whoosh, he flops right back down onto his bedding. He laments missing his chance to train today, but happily decides to sleep in and start tomorrow instead. A foot firmly steps into the disorganized room. The man commands the drooling boy to get up, but receives no response. Young Wei Yeonho wakes with a start, groggily greeting the man. The man, identified as Patriarch Wei Zhenghan, sternly asks if his son knows what time it is. Wei Zhenghan scolds him for sleeping when the sun is out, but Wei Zhengho cheekily replies that the sun is actually going down. The Patriarch's face darkens with anger as he asks just how long he's been lazing in his room. Wei Yeonho casually guesses it's been about 2 days. Enraged, Wei Zhenghan screams that it's been 4 days of him wrapped in a blanket. He fumes that even a hibernating bear would have bothered to flip over after 3 days. Wei Yeonho just laughs, cheerfully assuring his father that he gets up occasionally, so there's no need to worry. Wei Jianghen looms over his son with a terrifyingly angry expression, finally getting the boy's startled attention. Smirking, Wei Yeonho claims he tried to train, but the sun was always setting when he woke up. He cheerfully explains his logic. One must sleep when the sun sets to wake up early for training tomorrow. Kuwump. Enraged by his son's excuses, Wei Zhanghan flips the boy's bedding into the air. Wei Yeonho lands upside down in utter confusion, as his furious father vows to fix his rotten attitude today. Kayag. As the sun sets over the great Wei household, a boy's screams echo through the estate. Later in his office, A weary patriarch Wee Jung-han holds his head in his hands, groaning in frustration. The clan's administrator, Jo Bang, enters and correctly guesses the patriarch's distress is about the second young master. Wee Jung-han confirms his worries, but Jo Bang assures him that the boy will mature eventually. Overwhelmed with despair, Wee Jung-han covers his face and sighs that it's all his fault. The story flashes back, explaining Wee Jung-han left on a martial pilgrimage when his son was only 2. A family portrait from that time shows matriarch Han Sang-ah with a young Wee San-ho and a toddler Wee Yeon-ho. What was meant to be a 2-year journey was prolonged by countless battles and incidents. In the end, it took 8 long years for Wee Jung-han to finally return home to his clan. Although he earned the honorary title of Righteous Chivalrous Swordsman, the victory felt hollow. Looking back, Wee Jung-han realizes that what he lost during his absence was far too great. Upon his return, he found his once gentle wife had become as fierce as a tiger, and his beloved son, whom he thought would be no trouble at all, had grown into a giggling, lazy sloth. Phew. Back in the present, Wee Jung-han sweats profusely, exhausted by the memory and his current predicament. Administrator Jo Bang remains optimistic, telling the patriarch not to worry, as there must still be a way. When Wee Jung-han asks what way, Jo Bang reminds him that he is returning soon. A spark of hope ignites in Wee Jung-han's eyes, as Jo Bang confirms he will be back from the academy in 3 years. A sinister smile creeps across the patriarch's face as he chuckles, plotting what to do with his lazy son. A tall figure in a dragon-emblazoned robe looms over Wee Yeon-ho, who suddenly feels a strange chill. Glancing over his shoulder, a nervous Wee Yeon-ho sees who has entered his room. The eldest son, Wee San-ho, has returned, and Wee Yeon-ho recognizes his formidable brother. A startled Wee Yeon-ho stammers as his older brother coldly asks how long he has been asleep. Wee San-ho stares him down, reiterating that he was the one who asked the question first. Unable to answer, a sweating Wee Yeon-ho nervously scratches the back of his head. Wee San-ho's intimidating glare intensifies, his piercing eyes promising judgment. Panicking, Wee Yeon-ho desperately lies about having trained all morning, internally cursing his brother's sudden return. Wee San-ho skeptically asks if he truly trained, to which Wee Yeon-ho gives an enthusiastic nod. Putting him to the test, Wee San-ho challenges him to use a technique to split a candle's flame in 2. With a confident smirk, Wee San-ho declares that he will now see his brother's progress over the past 3 years. Wee Yeon-ho draws his sword, positioning himself before the single candle as his brother watches intently. Wee San-ho crosses his arms impatiently, urging his younger brother to proceed with the demonstration. Trying to buy time, Wee Yeon-ho makes a weak excuse that performing such a technique indoors could be dangerous. Wee San-ho bellows that he will handle the consequences and demands to see his skills, forcing a reluctant agreement. Gritting his teeth, a sweating Wee Yeon-ho prepares for the inevitable, thinking, here goes nothing. He begins his sword form, a trail of blue light following the graceful arc of his blade. He focuses his energy, gripping the hilt of his sword as he prepares to strike. In the vast room, he stands alone before the small, flickering candle flame. With a flash of movement, he unleashes his technique in a blur of motion and glowing energy. He executes the Soaring Dragon, a technique meant to showcase his power and precision. He pants lightly, the strike complete, but a bead of sweat betrays his sudden anxiety. In a moment of sheer panic, he realizes he completely screwed up. Wee San-ho looks on, his face unreadable, and states that 3 years have passed since they last met. He remarks that 3 years is more than enough time for a warrior to master a sword technique. His gaze falls upon the perfectly intact candle as he delivers a crushing verdict. Wee Yeon-ho has gotten worse. The scene shifts to the Wee clan family, including the patriarch and his 2 sons, eating a meal together in silence. A miserable Wee Yeon-ho predicts he's going to get indigestion from the tense family meal. Patriarch Wee Jung-han asks his eldest son, Wee San-ho, about his time at the martial academy, and Wee San-ho calmly replies that all is fine. Wee San-ho confidently explains that hardships are a necessary part of training to overcome one's limits. With a look of pride, Patriarch Wee Jung-han acknowledges the hardships his eldest son must have endured. Wee San-ho humbly deflects the praise, but his father presses on, asking if there are any other issues. A hand purposefully sets down a pair of chopsticks, signaling a serious turn in the conversation. With a serious expression, Wee Sanho admits that there is indeed one matter to discuss. The matriarch and patriarch both turn their attention to him, asking what the issue could be. Wee Sanho reveals the issue is about Yonho, causing his parents to look concerned and a panicked Wee Yonho to defensively ask what's wrong. Wee Sanho's intense gaze falls upon his younger brother as he begins to explain his idea. He makes a firm declaration. Wee Yonho must be brought to the martial academy. Back in the present, the Divine Mad Dog explains that even legendary figures like Master Musan and Paing Dogyak despise Wee Yonho. A legendary power begins to stir, heralding the start of a new chapter in history. A pivotal moment in time is marked, a turning point for the future. With a hand gripping a sword, a new and great history officially begins. The young warrior holds his blade, his expression calm yet determined, ready for what lies ahead. A narration reflects that back then, no one could have possibly imagined his destiny. The two brothers ride on, with the narration pointing out the lazy boy who accompanies him would one day shake the world, a future that seems impossible, as Wee Yonho currently begs his brother to stop for a rest. Thus, a very reluctant Wee Yonho was practically dragged along to the martial academy. His younger sister, Wee Sur-yeon, cries desperately, begging him not to leave. His mother wishes him well, while Patriarch Wee Jong-han tearfully bellows for him to return as a man. As his sister waves goodbye, Wee Yonho calls out that he'll be back, while his father's laughter is cut short by his wife. The two brothers ride off into the scenic countryside, leaving their home behind. Wee Sanho rides with a stoic and determined expression, focused on the journey ahead. The narration clarifies this determination only applies to Wee Sanho, as Wee Yonho groans, miserably slumped over his horse. Looking utterly exhausted, Wee Yonho weakly asks his brother if they are almost at their destination. Wee Sanho bluntly informs him they have 10 days left, shocking a horrified Wee Yonho. When Wee Sanho mentions it would have been faster if he could ride, a protesting Wee Yonho is told it was just an answer, not blame. Whining about his sore body, Wee Yonho pleads with his brother to let them rest for a while. He then points to a distant hill, trying to convince his brother by noting that other travelers are resting there. Wee Sanho's expression immediately hardens, a flicker of alarm in his eyes. As Wee Sanho dismounts and walks toward the hill, a confused Wee Yonho asks what he's doing. Standing over the figures lying on the ground, Wee Sanho's stoic posture reveals the gravity of the situation. Wee Yonho leans over to see, asking what's going on, only for his brother to grimly state they were too late. He looks down upon the bodies, announcing grimly that they are all dead. Kia-ah. Wee Yonho lets out a blood-curdling scream, utterly horrified by the sight of the corpses. Wee Sanho calmly inspects one of the bodies as a terrified Wee Yonho peeks out from behind him. A gruesome, flower-like mark on a victim's chest is identified by Wee Sanho as the work of the flower-indulging palm technique. He explains to his shocked brother that the technique, once called Crimson Flower Palm, was renamed after a vile criminal named Seo Juak. Realizing the implication, a trembling Wee Yonho asks if the dangerous man is somewhere nearby. Wee Sanho clenches his fist, explaining the criminal preys on women in the mountains, meaning these men died protecting someone. His eyes narrow with grim certainty. This means a woman is in danger somewhere close by. With a flash of energy, Wee Sanho leaps into action, telling his brother to stay put while he investigates. Outraged and terrified, Wee Yonho screams after him, questioning if he's really being left alone with dead bodies. He shouts into the empty landscape as his brother disappears over the horizon in a flash. The wind whistles across the quiet field, leaving a defeated Wee Yonho all alone. A bead of sweat rolls down his face as he nervously glances back at the gruesome scene behind him. He turns to face the horses and the still bodies, the grim reality of the situation sinking in. A terrified, drooling grin spreads across Wee Yonho's face as he mutters to himself, "I'm screwed." Standing with his horse, Wee Yonho worries about his brother's absence, certain that something must have happened. Fearing he'll become a tiger's dinner if he stays, a sweating Wee Yonho decides he must do something. Suddenly a brilliant flash of lightning startles him as a storm begins. As heavy rain pours down, Wee Yonho stands alone in the field with the two horses and the dead bodies. Looking up at the downpour, he sighs in defeat, realizing he's truly screwed. Crying out in frustration, he struggles to drag one of the corpses onto a horse, determined to move on. He can't leave the bodies to become tiger food, but the pouring rain makes burying them impossible. Gritting his teeth, he pushes onward through the storm, desperately needing to find shelter. PRRR. One of the horses rears back violently in the storm. Ugh. Wee Yanko frantically clings to the horse, demanding to know why it isn't listening to him. The horse throws him off its back as lightning cracks across the sky. Kua. Wee Yonho screams in terror as he is sent flying through the air. He crashes and tumbles brutally across the muddy ground, crying out in pain. Exhausted and defeated, he lies on his back amidst the falling leaves. He sits up, dirt and bruises covering his face, looking around in a daze. Looking up, he discovers the entrance to a dark cave nearby. Nice! A wide, joyful grin spreads across his filthy face as he shouts that he's found shelter. PRRRNG. He happily calls out to the horses as they follow him into the cave. He ties the horses' reins tightly to a rock inside the shelter. Watching the horses, he laments that he can't even hit them for their disobedience. Wiping his dirty hand, he complains about the mess, grumbling that this is why he prefers staying home. Hoping his brother will find him, he explains that he left a marker outside the cave entrance. He collapses onto the ground, declaring that he doesn't know what to do and is just going to sleep. Curled up on the cold cave floor, he drifts into silence. As he rests, his thoughts turn to his brother, hoping that nothing bad has happened to him. Reassuring himself of his brother's strength, he settles down to sleep. As he sleeps soundly, a faint blue aura begins to emanate from his body. The mysterious blue energy intensifies, surrounding him as he sleeps. He begins to float off the ground, suspended in the air by the swirling blue power. The energy pulses around his sleeping form, a strange light illuminating the dark cave. Slowly waking, Wee Yonho groggily wonders what's going on. His eyes open as he questions where he is, noticing the cave ceiling looks different. Standing up, he realizes he's in a much deeper part of the cave and wonders if he rolled in his sleep. A sudden booming voice addresses him as fated human, causing him to cry out in shock. He stumbles backward and falls to the ground in a panic. Looking around nervously, he tries to find the source of the mysterious voice. A glowing blue orb of light materializes, welcoming him as the successor of the radiant sword. Wee Yonho points at the orb, cautiously asking if the sparkling thing is what's speaking to him. The orb's voice confirms it has transcended a physical body and is speaking from beyond time and space. It commands him to accept its will and rule the world. But Wee Yonho screams in terror, convinced it's a ghost. The orb tells him not to be afraid, explaining that it is already dead and only its will remains. It states that this place was prepared for a successor, and urges him to accept its will without doubt. Wee Yonho pauses, a bead of sweat on his face as he realizes this situation seems eerily familiar. Thinking it over, he connects the dots. A cave without people and an old man's will. He suddenly bursts into joyous laughter, realizing this must be a fateful, once-in-a-lifetime chance. Throwing his arms open, he declares that the heavens are rewarding his kindness, thinking he won't even need to attend the training hall. The orb commands him to inherit its sword and endlessly train to right the world's morals, and Wee Yonho eagerly agrees. The will explains that 30 years of hard training should be enough, which makes Wee Yonho's expression freeze in horror. The orb confirms, yes, just 30 years, as a stunned Wee Yonho tells it to wait. With a cheerful, dismissive wave, Wee Yonho says he doesn't think this fate was meant for him and tells the orb to find the next person. The blue orb of energy reacts with a shocked, WH what? With a carefree laugh, Wee Yonho declares he'd rather leave than be stuck there for 30 years. A spiky gray-haired man begins to tell a story, recalling that fateful meeting. In a flash of blue light, countless swords are shattered. As the narration explains, this meeting led to immense strength. A determined young man with long black hair clutches the hilt of his glowing blue sword. Wee Yonho cheerfully waves goodbye to the orb, deciding this fate isn't for him and telling it to find someone else. Shouting a final farewell, Wee Yonho sprints away from the glowing blue orb. He suddenly skids to a halt, looking back in confusion as something catches his attention. An imposing long-haired spirit named Baek Muhan materializes, desperately yelling for him to wait. Wee Yonho turns with a sharp glare, accusing the spirit of being a scammer. Outraged, Baek Muhan demands to know why he's being called a scammer, while Wei Yanho accuses him of changing tactics when his first trick failed. The spirit calmly clarifies that he wasn't pretending and is, in fact, a spirit who has left his body. Wei Yanho scoffs with his arms crossed, skeptically repeating the spirit's claim. HYA, with a battle cry, Wei Yanho swings his fist directly at the spirit's face. As Wei Yanho's hand passes harmlessly through his ethereal form, Baek Muhan asks what he's doing. Why, Wei Yanho screams in pure terror, finally realizing he's dealing with a real ghost. The spirit snaps at being called a ghost, explaining he's using spirit transmission arts, though Wei Yanho mutters, that's just a fancy name for a ghost. Baek Muhan roars in frustration, vehemently denying that he is a ghost. The gray-haired narrator concludes that this was the moment Wei Yanho met his master. The scene shifts to two men by a campfire, where a younger man with tied-up hair asks if spirit transmission arts truly exist. The gray-haired man confirms it's a technique only the most powerful martial artists can achieve. His young companion looks to the night sky, asking who could possibly use such an ability. The gray-haired man leans in with a serious expression, asking if the young man knows of the Sword Emperor. Of course, the young man replies, recognizing him as the legendary master of the Thousand Swords Baek clan, the strongest in history. The gray-haired man reveals he's speaking of Baek Muhan, the Radiant Sword, who is the master of the legendary Radiant Martial Sovereign. The young man gasps in shock, questioning how this is possible since Baek Muhan lived 300 years ago. The gray-haired man explains that while Baek Muhan is from a forgotten era, he is the one who created Wei Yanho. The young man, impressed, assumes the Radiant Martial Sovereign must have begged for the opportunity. With a sly grin, the gray-haired man reveals that it was actually the opposite. In a flashback, a desperate Baek Muhan is seen pleading with someone to become his disciple. Wei Yanho casually walks away, refusing the offer and stating he's not even from the Baek clan. Enraged, Baek Muhan warns that he won't let him go so easily and unleashes a wave of blue energy. A massive, glowing barrier of energy erupts from the ground, blocking Wei Yanho's escape. Wei Yanho looks up in bewilderment at the impassable wall before him. Baek Muhan laughs triumphantly, boasting that he's created a thick stone gate that Wei Yanho can never break with his current power. He offers a deal, promising that if Wei Yanho learns his martial arts, he will be able to slice through the gate like paper. With a sigh of resignation, Wei Yanho clenches his fist, seemingly accepting his predicament. Baek Muhan angrily reminds him that he can't possibly cut the gate with his current abilities. To Baek Muhan's confusion, Wei Yanho ignores him and begins grinding his sword against the rocky floor. "What are you doing?" Baek Muhan asks, to which Wei Yanho replies that he's digging a hole. Wei Yanho confidently explains his plan to slowly grind through the stone gate with his metal sword, estimating it will take about a year or two. Baek Muhan is aghast at the thought of him stubbornly grinding away for 2 years. Wei Yanho calls him out on his hypocrisy, finding it funny coming from someone who wanted 30 years of training, leaving Baek Muhan silently fuming. Baek Muhan desperately tries to negotiate, promising Wei Yanho won't be disappointed, but Wei Yanho bluntly refuses. The spirit then offers to let him go in 20 years. Still unimpressed, Wei Yanho dismisses 20 years as too long and casually counters with an offer of 3 years. Baek Muhan is absolutely livid at the suggestion, shouting that even the legendary Zhang Sanfeng couldn't master his arts in such a short time. Unfazed, Wei Yanho turns to leave, concluding that if it's impossible, they simply aren't meant to be. As the grating sound of metal on stone continues, Baek Muhan seethes with utter powerless frustration. 5 years, Baek Muhan shouts, causing Wei Yanho to finally pause his monotonous grinding. In a last-ditch effort, Baek Muhan makes a grand promise. Give him 5 years and he'll make him the strongest person in the world. Wei Yanho thoughtfully scratches his chin, intrigued by the prospect of becoming the world's strongest martial artist in just 5 years. As Wei Yanho considers the offer, he thinks he's never heard of a spirit as vivid as Baek Muhan. He reasons that the technique might be a secret, concluding that the spirit truly could be the world's strongest master. Convinced that 5 years is a cheap price for mastery, he decides to seize the opportunity, his sword gleaming. Fine, with a determined shout, Wei Yanho enthusiastically agrees to the deal, reaching out to accept. The gray-haired narrator by the campfire explains that at the time, Wei Yanho didn't know he was dealing with the Sword Emperor. A flashback reveals Wee Yeonho sleeping soundly, drool escaping his open mouth. A furious Baek Muhan roars at him to wake up, to which a groggy Wee Yeonho simply replies, "Huh?" Wee Yeonho sits up, complaining that as a human, he needs to sleep, unlike his dead master. Baek Muhan cursed the skies. Gritting his teeth, the spirit apologizes and tells him it's time to train. Described as a lazy bastard, Wee Yeonho yawns and questions having to train immediately after waking up. As Wee Yeonho sleeps all day and barely practices, an exasperated Baek Muhan yells that it will take 55 years at this rate. While polishing his sword sheath, Wee Yeonho cheekily remarks that this is why one needs a talented master. The narrator explains that Wee Yeonho's constant taunts made Baek Muhan explode with anger, forcing a mental apology from the spirit. Baek Muhan laments that his desire to pass on his martial arts has trapped him in this terrible, frustrating state. As Baek Muhan wishes he had a body to discipline his student, Wee Yeonho rolls on the floor, laughing mischievously. Wee Yeonho suddenly sits up and asks his master how he managed to drop the stone gate. He asks about the gate, then cheekily suggests the spirit could just manipulate his body to teach him the martial arts directly. Baek Muhan explains he simply pulled a string on a pre-made device, which has nothing to do with having a body. The spirit clarifies that he used psychic levitation, powered by his chi alone, to pull the string. A sudden look of profound realization dawns on Baek Muhan's face. Why didn't I realize it earlier? Baek Muhan lets out a tremendous roar as the idea finally clicks. The spirit erupts in maniacal laughter, terrifying Wee Yeonho, who asks if he's finally lost his mind. Baek Muhan explains that he was too fixated on not having a body and thanks his student for the valuable lesson. Wham! As Wee Yeonho starts to question him, he's struck by an unseen force. Lying on the ground, a dazed Wee Yeonho looks up in confusion. He stares in shock as a small, glowing rock hovers menacingly in the air before him. Baek Muhan grins, declaring he's realized that, even without a body, he can still move rocks whenever he wants. Wee Yeonho watches in horror as his master spirit ominously continues, "And if I can move rocks." With a triumphant laugh, Baek Muhan summons several dark, glowing orbs, declaring he can now do things like this. Wait. Wee Yeonho screams in terror, quickly changing his tune and begging his master to talk things over. The training intensifies as levitating rocks brutally force Wee Yeonho into a grueling stance. Outside the now-sealed cave, a faint scream of agony echoes through the rain. He relentlessly trained his swordsmanship during the day. A montage of fierce purple energy slashes begins. With grit and determination, he pushes through the exhausting training, his blade a blur. And at night, they debated, the spirit master arguing fiercely with his weary student. Wee Yeonho spars with the ethereal Baek Muhan, grunting in pain as he struggles against his master's power. The narration explains that his very existence became the sword, showing Baek Muhan manipulating glowing orbs. A brilliant flash of purple and blue energy marks a key moment in his transformation. His life has become the sword. Wee Yeonho stands exhausted over a pile of shattered rock, his weapon plunged into the ground. With no time to be lazy, Wee Yeonho's hard work earns a smug, satisfied grin from his spectral master. The cave floor is now covered in stones that have been perfectly sliced in half. Taking a deep breath, a more mature Wee Yeonho looks up, his training seemingly complete. He shook the world. A scarred and muscular Wee Yeonho grins with satisfaction, announcing he's finally out. The scene changes as a voice calls out to Yeonho, who is seen sleeping and asking for a little more rest. He sits up, irritated at being woken, and asks if the person waking him doesn't believe he'll get up. His expression shifts to one of confusion as he looks up. The glowing spirit of Baek Muhan appears before him, summoning him to come closer. Baek Muhan begins to reflect on his life, explaining his hope was to see the very end of martial arts. He recounts how his single-minded pursuit turned him into a crabby old man, shunned by his own clan. Wee Yeonho watches his master's solemn speech, thinking to himself how uncharacteristically serious he is today. An elderly white-haired man reflects that it's obvious why his clan never came looking for him. He recalls how he abandoned his own family and children in pursuit of martial arts. He had mistakenly believed that reaching the pinnacle of martial arts would grant him everything he desired. In a painful memory, he reaches out desperately, his face etched with regret and loss. Now a glowing spirit, he smiles, having learned that swordsmanship is meaningless without people to share the journey. A young, black-haired man looks up in confusion as the spirit tells him he was the one who taught him this lesson. The old master explains that for the first time in his life, he took on a student. He recalls being angry and annoyed, but also feeling joy and fondness while watching his student grow stronger. The young man stands casually before the ethereal, glowing form of his master. The young man asks his master why he's speaking as if they are parting ways forever. With a peaceful expression, the master confirms that it is time, leaving his student bewildered. The young man panics, yelling and demanding to know what his master means, refusing to believe him. He furiously reminds his master of their promise to train for 30 years, insisting he must exist for 25 more. The master calmly acknowledges his promise as his student angrily asks what he means to do about it. He explains that the internal chi he gave his student as an elixir was meant to sustain him without food. Looking faint and weary, the master reveals his power is gone and it is time to say goodbye. The student yells in anguish, asking why he wasn't told sooner, promising he would have found food and returned. The master gives a knowing, sweaty smile, doubting his student would have returned, but saying he understands his feelings. As he begins to fade, he tries to offer some final words to his shocked student. He says he cherished their time together, and though he wanted to see him travel the world, this parting is fine. The master's face is calm and content as he accepts his end. He envisions his student's glorious future, traveling the world with the power of a great dragon. The master urges him to go see the world, assuring him that everything else will naturally fall into place. He gives his student one last piece of advice: see the people in the world first, and do not repeat his mistakes. The master assures his student that even if his existence is forgotten by the world, his essence will live on through his student's movements and his swordsmanship. He declares, "I am within them," as a brilliant light shines. As his form dissolves, he tells his student it's okay not to be great or outstanding. The student reaches out desperately, begging his master not to leave and offering to stop learning altogether. He screams for just a little more time, pleading for even just one more day. Reaching for the wisps of blue energy, he is left with his master's final words: "Be happy." The young man, now confirmed to be Wee Yeonho, walks alone through the desolate cave. Sobbing, he angrily mutters that his master should have told him what was happening sooner. His sorrow twists into rage as he realizes his master intentionally left without giving him a chance to prepare. Lifting a bundle of clothes, Wee Yeonho discovers a message and curses the old man for his parting trick. Outside the cave, he throws the clothes in a rage, screaming in absolute frustration. A narration explains that the master, Baek Moo-han, left a message written on Wee Yeonho's clothes. To ensure Wee Yeonho would not stop training, Baek Moo-han embedded a special feature within his body. The inner elixir he gave Wee Yeonho will automatically improve his martial arts. However, a chart shows the elixir's power grows faster than Wee Yeonho's body can adapt through experience alone. If he is lazy and his body falls too far behind, the elixir's power will consume him and he will die. Holding the clothes, Wee Yeonho realizes the grim truth. He must train or die, and curses the old man's scheme. Baek Moo-han's parting words echo in the clouds, instructing him to see the world to feel and learn. Wee Yeonho clutches the clothes, resentfully accepting his master's advice to see big things and become a big person. The master's instructions send him to Rulin to find the world's greatest scholar, leaving Wee Yeonho stunned. He shouts at the sky in exasperation, complaining about the long list of places he's being forced to visit. Years later, a more mature Wee Yeonho stretches, deciding to complete his quest before finally going home. Scars now mark his determined face, a testament to the harsh training he has endured. With newfound resolve, Wee Yeonho looks toward the forest, ready to do what he must. With a faint smile, Baek Moo-han's spirit tells his student he was happy thanks to him. Wee Yeonho walks away, muttering that his master bothered him until the end and that he won't be back. Now alone on a path through the woods, Wee Yeonho wonders where to find someone named Rulin. As his student departs, Baek Moo-han's spirit silently drifts back toward the sealed cave entrance. The spirit of Baek Moo-han erupts into a wild, unrestrained fit of maniacal laughter. He mocks his student's desire to waste away, laughing at the idea of such a powerful martial artist simply dying in obscurity. As Wee Yeonho walks into the distance, Baek Moo-han resolves that the world is too large to let him go to waste. Calling him a bastard, Baek Moo-han's spirit laments the waste of his student's incredible martial arts. In a final, gentle moment, Baek Moo-han's departing spirit admits that he was happy thanks to his student. With a final wish for his student to be happy, Baek Moo-han's ethereal form dissolves into the wind. Wee Yeon-ho pauses, confused by the unfamiliar scent of grass after his long confinement in the cave. As time passes, a single leaf floats over the sprawling city of Kaifeng, built upon a network of rivers. A scarred and haggard Wee Yeon-ho arrives in a new town, wearily asking if this is Kaifeng. He approaches a rustic settlement, where a man with tied-up hair sits on a large log. Startled, the beggar sect branch leader, Jang Il, calls the weathered Wee Yeon-ho a mummy. Wee Yeon-ho states he has a question, but Jang Il immediately assumes it's about money and insists nothing is free. Jang Il gives Wee Yeon-ho a shrewd, calculating look, sizing him up. Wee Yeon-ho shouts in disbelief, realizing his face looks 50 while his voice is that of a 20-year-old. Jang Il offers Wee Yeon-ho a discount, explaining they are both in the same field, begging. Outraged at the assumption, Wee Yeon-ho screams that he doesn't look like a beggar, but Jang Il insists he does. Jang Il tells Wee Yeon-ho to leave and come back after begging for some money, prompting another denial. With a knowing look, Jang Il tells Wee Yeon-ho he has a natural talent for begging and shouldn't waste it. Jang Il pauses, an idea sparking in his mind as he continues to stare at Wee Yeon-ho. Suddenly grabbing Wee Yeon-ho's hand, a very enthusiastic Jang Il asks if he wants to work with him. A vision of success appears, with coins flying toward Wee Yeon-ho's stoic, muscular form. Inside a humble building, Wee Yeon-ho and Jang Il sit across from each other with a huge pile of coins between them. Jang Il laughs triumphantly, celebrating that they earned half a year's operating costs in just half a day. Now ready for business, Jang Il grins and asks Wee Yeon-ho what information he seeks. Wee Yeon-ho requests detailed lists of famous scholars and blacksmiths, which Jang Il considers an easy task. As Wee Yeon-ho continues listing his extensive information requests, Jang Il is shocked by the sheer volume. Jang Il promises to deliver the info in 7 days, but Wee Yeon-ho lies down, declaring he'll stay since he has nowhere else to go. After a moment of hesitation, Jang Il sighs and reluctantly allows Wee Yeon-ho to stay. A beggar rushes in, shouting about trouble for the sect, but Jang Il dismisses him, questioning what trouble beggars could have. The man cries out that they are all going to starve to death, leaving Jang Il utterly baffled. A flashback shows beggars being shooed away by a wealthy citizen, hinting at their problem. Jang Il runs through the streets with his subordinate, demanding to know what is happening. He comes to an abrupt halt, his face a mask of shock and confusion at the scene before him. A well-dressed man lectures the crowd, pointing out that if you're a beggar, you need to reach a certain standard. That standard is revealed to be Wee Yeon-ho, whose pitiful appearance has earned him a mountain of coins from sympathetic onlookers. Jang Il lets out a silent scream of utter horror, realizing his entire business is being single-handedly destroyed. Surrounded by coins, Wee Yeon-ho smirks, thinking that making money is easy and his takeover of the beggar world is complete. Back at the beggar's quarters, a yawning Wee Yeon-ho announces that he is thirsty. Lounging on the floor, Wee Yeon-ho lazily kicks his foot and orders an enraged Jang Il to bring him water immediately. Wee Yeon-ho complains the bowl is dirty and demands a new one, prompting a frustrated Jang Il to punch a subordinate. He then complains the water is lukewarm and demands cold water from the mountains, sending the beggar scrambling in a panic. Finally satisfied, Wee Yeon-ho rests on the floor while Jang Il trembles with suppressed rage behind him. Jang Il fumes, lamenting his fate as a beggar sect branch leader forced to act as a servant. He grits his teeth, knowing he can't kick Wee Yeon-ho out or his men will starve. As Jang Il gives him a massage, Wee Yeon-ho asks about his information, just as a man bursts in with an announcement. The beggars celebrate as a messenger arrives, triumphantly holding up the information Wee Yeon-ho requested. Jang Il celebrates triumphantly as the information arrives, but Wee Yeon-ho is fast asleep, drooling contentedly. The scene flashes back to a gaunt and exhausted Wee Yeon-ho, collapsing on the street upon his arrival. In the flashback, Jang Il stands over the fallen Wee Yeon-ho, disdainfully questioning the value of his meager possessions. Despite his skepticism, Jang Il snatches the crumpled piece of paper from Wee Yeon-ho's outstretched hand. Jang Il silently unfolds the mysterious paper, his expression shifting to one of intense focus. He reads the contents and is horrified, realizing the massive request could get his entire sect killed. Back in the present, a panicked Jang Il thinks fast, desperately trying to stop Wee Yeon-ho from leaving. Deciding on a new plan, Jang Il grabs Wee Yeon-ho and pulls him through the streets, promising a solution. He leads him to an opulent building belonging to the House sect, vowing to get him the information there. They are met by the imposing and beautiful House sect branch leader, Gi Nang-nang. While Jang Il offers a respectful greeting, Wee Yeon-ho stands beside him, poking his own cheek and muttering, "Fox dog?" Wee Yeon-ho leans in to mock Jang Il's subservient title, causing the beggar leader to seethe with silent fury. Trying to state his business, Wee Yeon-ho gets sidetracked as he and Jang Il devolve into a childish name-calling match. Gi Nang-nang looks on with amusement, questioning why the rival beggar sect leader has come to her for information. Jang Il quickly clarifies that he has brought a customer, not asking for himself, as Wee Yeon-ho continues his childish insults. Her amusement turns to annoyance as Gi Nang-nang stares, asking if they are trying to joke with her. Jang Il confirms the absurdity of the situation, stating that his client is, in fact, a beggar. Offended, Gi Nang-nang views their request as a provocation and flatly refuses to sell information to the beggar sect. Wee Yeon-ho pokes Jang Il to silence him and finally speaks for himself, stating he's not from the beggar sect. Turning to leave, Gi Nang-nang warns them that her sect has pride and will not tolerate further insults. As she walks away, Wee Yeon-ho calls out, pointedly questioning her credibility as an intelligence organization. Wee Yeon-ho smirks, openly mocking her sect's incompetence for failing to even identify a non-member. Stung by the insult, Gi Nang-nang turns and calls out the name Gongmu, putting the two men on alert. Facing an unseen subordinate, she demands to know the identity of the mysterious man before her. A voice from the shadows confirms they don't know who he is, but he is definitely not from the beggar sect. With a triumphant "See," Wee Yeon-ho spreads his hands, asking if she's finally willing to sell him the information. Gi Nang-nang responds with a terrifying grin, screaming no and ordering them to get out immediately. Completely unfazed by her explosive reaction, Wee Yeon-ho simply lets out a calm, dismissive, "Ha." He criticizes her poor business sense, questioning why she would refuse a paying customer out of sheer pride. Wee Yeon-ho continues to taunt her, suggesting that such poor judgment will lead to the house sect's downfall. Enraged, Gi Nang-nang threatens to have his limbs cut off, but Wee Yeon-ho only escalates, calling her an old lady. The insult hits its mark, sending Gi Nang-nang into a state of pure, trembling fury. Wee Yeon-ho leans back with a smug, "Eh?" as one of the sect members shouts in outrage at his disrespect. Losing all composure, Gi Nang-nang screams for her subordinate, Gongmu, to take action. At her command, Gongmu leaps from the rafters, launching two blade-like projectiles of energy. The attack coalesces into a massive, energy-charged fist that plummets toward the duo. As the fist descends with crushing force, someone screams in terror. Effortlessly pushing Jang Il to safety, Wee Yeon-ho unleashes a massive wave of blue energy to meet the attack head-on. Gi Nang-nang's arrogant expression dissolves into one of pure shock at his incredible power. Jang Il is equally stunned, gritting his teeth as he realizes the true strength of the man he dismissed as a beggar. The force of the impact tears Wee Yeon-ho's shirt, revealing his muscular physique as dark energy swirls around his fist. Her subordinate lies defeated in a crater as Gi Nang-nang stares, finally asking if Wee Yeon-ho is a martial master. Wee Yeon-ho casually explains that his devastating counterattack was simply instinct, and he could have been gentler. Jang Il internally admits that, while he suspected Wee Yeon-ho knew martial arts, he never imagined this level of power. Standing confidently amid the destruction, Wee Yeon-ho quietly blames his old master's harsh training for his overwhelming strength. Her tone completely changed. A flustered Gi Nang-nang apologizes profusely for not recognizing him as a prestigious customer. Jang Il watches her sudden reversal with deep suspicion, still doubting Wee Yeon-ho's peaceful intentions. Trying to de-escalate the situation, Jang Il nervously insists they truly came only for information his sect couldn't acquire. While Wee Yeon-ho casually drags the unconscious Gongmu away, Gi Nang-nang accuses Jang Il of bringing a tiger into her den. After assessing the situation, Gi Nangnang's expression hardens as she calmly announces that she will believe them. With a relieved expression, Zhang Il clasps his hands and offers his thanks. Gi Nangnang bows her head, stating that providing information is a separate matter since his client hurt her subordinate. She looks up with a sharp gaze, declaring that they will need compensation for the injury. A sweating Zhang Il nervously questions her demand for compensation, as Wei Yonho looks on impassively. Surrounded by a dark aura, Gi Nangnang coldly explains the unorthodox world's simple rule: blood for blood, a life for a life. A stylized image shows her subordinates, blades drawn with a clang, surrounding a terrified victim. Unimpressed, Wei Yonho smirks and remarks that everyone in this place has a flair for the dramatic. Surrounded by her armed followers, Gi Nangnang warns him that he will not be leaving unharmed. As Zhang Il tries to stop him, Wei Yonho waves his hand dismissively, explaining it was a mistake, and he only struck in self-defense. Gi Nangnang's face contorts in fury as she internally curses the skeleton-looking man before her. Facing the two men from atop a staircase, she reiterates the Murim's simple way: an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Wei Yonho scoffs that her philosophy sounds like loan shark bullshit, prompting a panicked Zhang Il to shout for him to stop. One of her subordinates steps forward, threatening to carve a piece of flesh from Wei Yonho's face as compensation. Wei Yonho raises a hand, calmly telling them to hold on. He cheekily pinches his own gaunt face, explaining with a grin that he has no fat to spare since he hasn't been eating properly. An eye twitches as Gui Nangnang grits her teeth, her patience finally snapping. With a furious roar, she screams the order to kill him. Her masked subordinates leap into action, charging Wei Yonho with glowing red swords. As he dodges their attacks, Wei Yonho wonders how they escalated from taking flesh to wanting to kill him. He coolly comments on the high interest they're charging for the slight. In a flash of brutal, close-quarters combat, the tide of battle instantly turns. Wei Yonho effortlessly counters, grabbing an attacker by the face. The subordinate's face is contorted in a silent scream of agony. With his muscular physique revealed, Wei Yanyo stands ready as the chaos unfolds. Gi Nangnang lets out a shriek of utter disbelief at the turn of events. Standing calmly as his opponents are sent flying, Wei Yonho issues a single command: nobody move. A sword clatters to the ground amidst the defeated bodies as he declares he doesn't really want to kill them yet, his body now crackling with an intense blue aura. Zhang Il stares in stunned, sweating disbelief at the overwhelming display of power. Equally shocked, Gi Nangnang stammers as she recognizes the sheer force of his aura. Wei Yonho recalls his master's harsh advice about dealing with attackers, admitting that while he dislikes the old man, his words are never wrong. Gi Nangnang realizes with dawning horror that she has picked a fight with the wrong person, someone far beyond her ability to handle. She resolves to get herself together, knowing a single misstep could doom her entire branch of the house sect. Her demeanor completely changed, she cautiously asks what he wants, to which a small chibi version of Wei Yonho replies, information. Zhang Il steps forward and presents the crumpled list, asking her to fill in the missing information. Gi Nangnang looks at the simple paper in confusion, wondering why they brought a monster to her for such a trivial matter. She states the task isn't difficult and will take about 15 minutes, which they agree to. With a sinister smile, she singles out the beggar sect's branch leader, summoning Zhang Il to see her, who lets out a terrified "Heek." A door slams shut with a loud ha. Wei Yonho bursts into boisterous laughter, pointing at Zhang Il. Zhang Il's cheeks are red and comically swollen, as if he's been slapped repeatedly. Wei Yonho mockingly asks if she beat him. Zhang Il angrily defends himself, but Wei Yonho retorts, questioning if Gi Nangnang seems like a regular sect member. Frantically, Zhang Il explains she is the powerful daughter of the house sect leader and its future heir, far too strong for him to fight. As Zhang Il continues his frantic explanation, Gi Nangnang calmly returns to the room. She presents the finished documents to Wei Yonho, who thanks her while a terrified Zhang Il flinches away. Now, seated at a table, Gi Nangnang explains that the house sect has its own rules for payment. Zhang Il nervously whispers about the information fees, asking how much it will cost. Wei Yonho casually holds out a palm full of bronze coins, declaring the price cheap. The woman with black hair states the price is 1 silver nyang, shocking Zhang Il. Looking at the paltry bronze coins in his hand, Zhang Il shouts in outrage, questioning the exorbitant price. Gi Nangnang justifies the steep price, explaining that the information is high security, which Wee Yonho seems to accept. As Wee Yonho gets up to leave, Jong-il anxiously asks where he's going, to which he cryptically replies, "What do you think?" With a look of grim determination, Wee Yonho declares that he has to go earn the 5 silver yang himself. A desperate Jang-il grabs Wee Yonho's leg, protesting that he brought him here for a reason, but Wee Yonho asks what he's supposed to do. Crying and utterly defeated, Jang-il begs him to wait, clutching his hands in despair. A narration explains that Jang-il was forced to use all of Wee Yonho's earnings, his own hidden savings, and an IOU to cover the cost. 5 gleaming silver ingots, the cause of all the trouble, sparkle brightly. Jang-il clutches one of the silver pieces, his heart aching from the financial loss, as Wee Yonho smugly asks if he's crying. While Jang-il shouts about his depleted savings, Wee Yonho examines the documents and is genuinely impressed by their thoroughness. Holding a folded letter, Wee Yonho asks if it will be expensive to send it to Guangdong. Gi Nangnang states it would be very expensive, but offers to do it for free in exchange for answers to some questions. She asks his name and age, and he reveals he is Wee Yonho, 17 years old, which causes Jang-il to shout in disbelief. Gi Nangnang is stunned, realizing his martial prowess is far beyond that of a typical 17-year-old. She thoughtfully repeats his name, Wee Yonho, her eyes narrowed as she pieces together his identity. Her eyes fly open in shock as she asks if he is the second son of Guangdong's prestigious Wee clan. Surprised that she knows him, Wee Yonho looks up from the table and questions her knowledge. Wee Nangnang explains that the Wee clan hired them to find him, causing Jang-il to realize in shock that Wee Yonho is Sunho's younger brother. When Wee Yonho asks how he knows his older brother, a tiny, excited Jang-il pops up, declaring that he's his friend. After confirming the letter will take 10 days to arrive, Wee Yonho calmly states the wait is fine, while Jang-il silently fumes about being bossed around by a kid. With a swift motion, Gi Nangnang presents a folded red cloth. She explains the cloth marks him as a special guest of the House sect and will summon an informant if displayed. As Wee Yonho internally ponders his target's incredible skill, he asks if the special marker is free. Gi Nangnang flatly says no, thinking such a person is unheard of. Deciding it's best to form an alliance, Gi Nangnang dismisses his last query as useless and instead offers him his next piece of information for free. She clarifies that the offer is a special gesture to make up for their earlier conflict and retain him as a valued customer. Wee Yonho brushes off the incident, but Jang-il, with his swollen face, complains about being beaten and broke, earning a chibi taunt for being a loser. Walking through a bustling city street, Jang-il continues to mope, muttering about his lost money. Wee Yonho casually advises him that money comes and goes, and that he should embrace his beggar roots instead of being greedy. Jang-il fumes internally, frustrated that he's not even strong enough to get his revenge by beating Wee Yonho up. Waving a hand dismissively, Jang-il tries to part ways, stating that their business is now over. Wee Yonho grabs his arm, explaining there's a problem, which makes an exasperated Jang-il shout, "What now?" Flashing a brilliant, carefree smile, Wee Yonho cheerfully announces that he has no money. An expression of pure, twitching fury contorts Jang-il's face. The scene shifts to a grand, tranquil estate in the mountains, where Gi Nangnang stands contemplatively on a balcony. She gazes into the distance, her expression thoughtful after the day's chaotic encounter. Calling into the building, she summons her subordinate, Gongmu, who immediately answers her. She gives an order to spread the word that the Wee clan's missing son has returned as a martial master, as Wee Yonho arrives at the Great Hanlim Institute. Wee Yonho stares at the institute ahead, his expression serious and determined. An aerial shot reveals the sprawling and beautiful campus of the Songling Great Hanlim Institute, nestled among colorful trees and serene ponds. Within the institute, a man with a mustache and topknot sits peacefully, enjoying a cup of tea by a window. Identified as the third grand scholar Munyu Hoan, he smiles contentedly, remarking on how nice the moment is. A young woman with red ribbons tied in her hair approaches him respectfully and addresses him as father. The young woman, introduced as his daughter Mun Yinjej, informs him that a guest has arrived. Though Munyu Hoan says he has no appointments, his daughter clarifies that the guest simply wishes to play a game of Go. Delighted by the prospect, the scholar's face lights up with a blush and an eager smile. Mun Yinjej, announces the guest's arrival as Wee Yeon-ho enters the room, observing his surroundings. Looking out at the serene pond, Wee Yeon-ho politely states that he hopes he isn't intruding. Mun Yoo-hwan warmly welcomes him, gesturing toward the prepared Go board. As he takes a seat across from the scholar, Wee Yeon-ho explains that Go is the only kind of game he knows how to play. The scholar readily agrees to the match, choosing the white stones and inviting his guests to begin. With focused concentration, Wee Yeon-ho announces, "I'll begin," and reaches into the bowl for a black stone. He selects a black stone from the pouch, his fingers deftly picking his first move. The scholar Mun Yoo-hwan mentally dismisses his opponent, assuming he's just looking for a handout, and decides to help him after the game. With a sharp tack, Wee Yeon-ho slams the stone onto the board with surprising force and intensity. Mun Yoo-hwan's eyes widen in surprise, startled by the aggressive and confident opening move. Reassessing the situation, the scholar realizes his guest is certainly not a beginner and finds the development interesting. Mun Yoo-hwan thoughtfully strokes his chin, impressed by the young man's speed and rare level of experience. With a series of quick taps and thocks, the game proceeds at a blistering pace between the two silent opponents. The scholar remains focused as the sound of stones rapidly hitting the board fills the otherwise quiet room. Mun Yoo-hwan's hand hesitates over the board, his concentration broken as the game's complexity mounts. Sweating under the pressure, the scholar stares at the board in disbelief, wondering what is happening. Wee Yeon-ho leans forward with a predatory grin, taunting him to make a move as a narration labels him a war demon. The Go board reveals an intricate and aggressive formation, showcasing Wee Yeon-ho's relentless strategy. Despite the pressure, Mun Yoo-hwan looks up from the board, a single bead of sweat on his face, and thinks, "Amazing!" The stones seem to fall through a void, representing the chaos and depth of the game. In a stunning visualization, Mun Yoo-hwan compares his opponent's playstyle to the overwhelming power of angry ocean waves. He continues his thought, seeing Wee Yeon-ho as a battle-crazed fighter who needlessly attacks, represented by a shadowy beast with glowing red eyes. The monstrous visualization continues, showing a winged demon diving to exploit even the slightest opening. The demon charges forward, its gaping maw ready to devour its prey, just as Wee Yeon-ho attacks on the board. Over a glowing red grid, Wee Yeon-ho embodies this demonic aura, his hand poised to strike. His eyes gleam with red intensity as the narration declares once more that he is a war demon. After the game, Mun Yoo-hwan compliments Wee Yeon-ho's unique style, which he attributes to his master's harsh bullying, piquing the scholar's curiosity. Wee Yeon-ho recalls his cruel master's deal of rest for a win or intensified training for a loss, admitting the old man was very strict. He then asks to stay for a while, explaining that his master instructed him to remain in the Rulin region. Mun Yoo-hwan happily agrees to help, offering him lodging for as long as needed as his daughter, Mun Yeon looks on. The scholar instructs his daughter to prepare everything, but Wee Yeon-ho interrupts to admit he has no money. Mun Yoo-hwan laughs heartily, explaining he never expected payment and intended to offer him a room anyway. He proposes a simple arrangement. In exchange for his stay, Wee Yeon-ho will play Go with him or his guests from time to time. Wee Yeon-ho casually agrees to the terms, finding the arrangement more than fair. As Wee Yeon-ho bids farewell to the scholar, Mun Eun gestures for him to follow her. Submerged in a steaming bath, Wee Yeon-ho lets out a sigh of pure bliss, finding the experience incredibly nice. He muses that while he hated baths as a child, this one feels different, leaving his skin feeling cleaner. Overcome with emotion, he blames his damned old man for his past hardships as a ghostly image of his laughing master appears. Carrying fresh clothes, Mun Eun walks toward the bathhouse, her footsteps echoing softly. Puzzled, she wonders why her father was so quick to accept a rough-looking stranger as a guest. A foot splashes as it steps out from the bathwater. She enters the room, only to be stunned by the sight of Wee Yeon-ho's incredibly muscular back as he emerges from the steam. Letting out a piercing shriek, she startles a confused Wee Yeon-ho, who turns and asks what's wrong. Blushing furiously, she stammers that she thought he was a ghost and pleads with him to cover himself. He calmly takes the folded clothes she's holding out to him. Mun Eun stares, wide-eyed and blushing, at his shirtless physique as he stands before her. Wee Yeon-ho wraps a towel around his waist, his chiseled torso still dripping with water. Looking back at the flustered young woman, he calmly asks if his current state of dress is sufficient. As Mun Yeon awkwardly asks who he is, Wee Yeon-ho stands wrapped in a towel and asks her the very same question. A few days later, Moon Yoon's voice rings out across the estate as she calls for her father. She storms up to Moon Yoo-hwan, demanding he intervene with the new guy who has taken up residence with them. Annoyed, she complains that Wee Yeon-ho does nothing but sleep and eat, having been completely lazy for the entire week. Moon Yoo-hwan simply smiles, seemingly unbothered by his daughter's complaints about their new guest. As her father calmly walks away, she continues her rant about laziness, only for him to realize he never even asked for their guest's name. Moon Yoo-hwan calmly explains to his daughter, Yeonji, that a game of Go reveals much about a person's character. He elaborates that while one can fake expressions, their true nature is laid bare on the Go board, as an impatient person cannot feign patience. Moon Yoo-hwan continues his internal reflection, stating that one's life story is revealed through a game of Go, and that Wee Yeon-ho seems to truly enjoy battle. The scholar concludes that his guest is definitely not a lazy person, but rather someone who has lived a very rough life. He rationalizes that a bright sun casts a dark shadow, believing Wee Yeon-ho's laziness is simply a deserved rest from his past hardships. Using a proverb about a bird seeking shelter from the rain, Moon Yoo-hwan tells his daughter to let their guest rest without judgment. With her eyes closed, Moon Yoon exhales and reluctantly says, "All right, phew." Her eyes snap open with a sly smirk as she reveals she was only pretending to agree. She finds Wee Yeon-ho passed out on the floor of his messy room, surrounded by empty dishes and snoring loudly. Convinced her father has been deceived by a lazy ass, she vows to get Wee Yeon-ho kicked out. Looming over his sleeping form, Moon Yoon stands with her arms crossed, radiating righteous indignation. She stares down at him, momentarily pondering his strange behavior. Yelling for him to get up, she violently rips his blanket away, sending him tumbling to the floor. Sitting up groggily, Wee Yeon-ho cheekily tells her to let him know when the sun sets. Furious, she berates him for doing nothing but sleeping for a whole week while everyone else at the institute studies. He calmly replies that people study because they want to, and he sleeps because he wants to, asking what the problem is. Moon Yoon explodes in a rage, yelling at him for being a freeloader who doesn't even bathe, and complaining that her family can't afford to feed someone who only lazes around. When Wee Yeon-ho starts to mention her father's permission, she cuts him off, declaring that she is the one in charge of the money. With a look of stern resolve, she waits for his response. After a brief pause, a weary Wee Yeon-ho finally concedes, asking what he should do. She presents his task, doing the laundry, gesturing towards several massive, stinking piles in the courtyard. After Wee Yeon-ho expresses disbelief at the sheer volume of laundry for just one person's food, she confirms the deal, prompting his sarcastic retort about gold flakes in his rice. As he walks off, she wishes him good luck, secretly planning to make him rewash anything that isn't perfectly clean. Smirking, she thinks to herself that he deserves the chore, and will never be able to finish it all in one day. Her smug expression instantly transforms into one of pure, sweating shock. She stares in disbelief at rows of sparkling, perfectly hung laundry, wondering how he possibly finished. Looking up at the blindingly clean sheets, she wonders if they were ever this white. Baffled, she watches Wee Yeon-ho already relaxing on the porch again, and wonders how he managed the impossible task. Clenching her fist, she refuses to give up, determined to find another way to make him work. Her next task is revealed, a massive pile of uncut logs and a single wood-chopping axe. When he asks if he must chop it all, she gives him a week, privately betting he'll run away after just one day. She returns to find a mountain of perfectly chopped and stacked firewood, a task she believes should have taken 10 people 10 days. When assigned dishwashing, she finds him napping beside impossibly high stacks of sparkling clean plates. When assigned gardening, she finds the entire grounds perfectly manicured, with him asleep next to a broom. Clenching her fists in utter frustration, she furiously wonders how he can be so incredibly capable. Elsewhere, Wee Yeon-ho's white-haired master tells a subordinate that the scholar made a mistake taking that guy in. The master explains with a sly grin that while it may not be intentional, Wee Yeon-ho is a magnet for disaster, and trouble follows him everywhere. He cites the current chaos at the once peaceful Rulin Scholar Hall as the latest example of Wham Gyun-ho's influence. The subordinate looks on, intrigued, and asks what happened. With the air of a grand storyteller, the master begins his tale of the events that transpired. The story starts with the simple word, "Go," over a blurred image of the game board. Back at the institute, an exhausted Wee Yeon-ho lets out a sigh, wondering how his situation got so out of hand. He is surrounded by a massive crowd of scholars who have flocked to the institute after receiving letters from Manhwa inviting them to play. A stone that stays stagnant rots. A laid table waits for its owner. Manhwa is shown penning the invitations, asking worthy opponents to visit for a game of Go. Looking bored, Wee Yeonho plays with blinding speed, making moves that leave the entire crowd in awe. As the crowd watches on, another challenger bows his head and admits his loss. With a weary expression, Wee Yeonho calls out, "Next," having become the undisputed main event at the Great Hanlum Institute. A new match begins as a black stone is slammed onto the board with incredible force. A new challenger, a serious-looking man with a golden topknot, studies the opening move intently. He internally questions the play, viewing the unconventional move as basically suicidal. He quickly reconsiders, realizing it can't be a simple mistake, and that such a move would only be foolish for a regular civilian. Beneath the title, Genius of Hanlum, Wee Yeonho holds his chin, a faint knowing smirk on his face. The challenger with the golden top-knot sweats, convinced Wee Yeonho's move is a trap he must avoid. Relieved, the challenger thinks he wisely avoided a plot, noticing that Wee Yeonho is shaking. An enraged Wee Yeonho internally screams, furious that his opponent retreated from his deliberately weak move. Placing a stone, he internally laments that he made the move to lose, otherwise he'll be trapped playing forever. The challenger bows his head in defeat, admitting his loss to a stunned Wee Yeonho. Tears of pure frustration stream down Wee Yeonho's face as he silently curses his predicament. He staggers away from the Go board, completely drained. He despairs that his suicidal moves, meant to guarantee a loss, have only been scaring his opponents away. Grabbing his head in panic, he realizes his unintentional victories will only attract more challengers. Clutching his aching back, he sighs that he'd rather be doing the laundry. His thoughts are interrupted by a woman's voice defiantly yelling that she doesn't want to. Curious, Wee Yeonho peeks around a decorative screen to see what the commotion is about. He sees a large man laden with gold jewelry named Nok Mok Pung pressuring a young woman to marry him. The woman, her hair tied with red ribbons, crosses her arms and flatly rejects his proposal. Nok Mok Pung warns her she'll regret her decision, but she defiantly insists she won't. He leans in, threateningly reminding her that he always gets what he wants and his offer won't be so polite next time. She boldly challenges him to do his worst, certain the Great Hanlum Institute is too strong to fall because of her. Nok Mok Pung smirks, reminding her that he has the power to make it happen, and she knows it. The young woman grits her teeth, her eyes filled with fury and frustration. She furiously accuses him of being arrogant and vows never to marry him, while he calmly retorts that it's not impossible. Having said her piece, she bids him goodbye and turns to storm away. Thump, he violently grabs her wrist, stopping her from leaving. Kaya. He yanks her back as she struggles, screaming for him to let her go. Leaning close, Nok Mok Pung warns her that it's in her best interest not to anger him. He licks his lips menacingly, asking if she can maintain her bold act if he decides to take her by force right now. The woman freezes, a look of pure terror on her face as she sweats. A new voice cuts in, remarking how inappropriate such words are in someone else's house, startling the terrified woman. Wee Yeonho stands nearby with his arms crossed, having witnessed the entire confrontation. Moon Yoonjae, recognizing him, angrily demands to know if he's finished the laundry and firewood she assigned him. Looking utterly spent, Wee Yeonho explains that he's been playing Go, his hand visibly trembling from exhaustion. He gently takes one of the red ribbons from her hair, telling her he'll borrow it as she watches in confusion. With a sharp snap, he deftly ties his long, messy hair into a ponytail. His expression turns serious as he glares forward, ready for a new kind of battle. Wee Yeonho walks past Moon Yoonjae and confronts Nok Mok Pung, sarcastically apologizing for his bad manners and eavesdropping. He then calls out Nok Mok Pung's hypocrisy, asking if a person who cares about manners acts the way he just did. Nok Pung's eyes widen as he recognizes the newcomer, identifying him as the genius of Hanlum. Wee Yeonho smirks, thanking him for the recognition, before dismissively adding that he has no idea who Nok Mok Pung is. As Nok Mok Pung begins to introduce himself, Wee Yeonho cuts him off with a cheerful wave, saying he really doesn't care. Nok Mok Pung's face contorts in a spasm of pure, unadulterated rage. He seethes at Wee Yeonho, telling him he should have minded his own business and stuck to playing Go. Wee Yonho grins mischievously, admitting he's exceptionally good at getting in people's way, just like now. Shaking with fury, Nakmokpung can only manage to curse at him. The tension is broken by a group of scholars who eagerly ask Wee Yonho for a game tomorrow, to which he casually agrees. Seeing that he's outnumbered and out of place, Nakmokpung scoffs and decides to leave. Pausing at the doorway, he delivers a final warning to Munyinj, telling her not to forget his offer. He threatens that if she doesn't come to him willingly in 3 days, he'll do things his own way before departing. Wee Yonho watches him leave, his expression now serious and thoughtful. Turning to a sighing Munyinj, Wee Yonho calmly asks who that man was. She explains that Nakmokpung is the adopted son of an imperial palace attendant, a man who wields immense power. Wee Yonho asks Munyinj what Nakmokpung was saying to her, but she remains silent and pensive. With an annoyed expression, she admits that he wants to marry her and won't take no for an answer. Wee Yonho casually suggests he seems like a good catch, earning a furious death threat from an enraged Munyinj. She clarifies with disgust that he's not interested in her romantically. He just wants to use her. Munyinj explains that while people say her father, Mun Yuhuan, would be a great politician, he avoids civil service for a specific reason. When Wee Yonho cheekily guesses it's because of his love for Go, she furiously shouts him down. She reveals the real reason. The eunuchs of the imperial palace are extremely wary of her father. The sinister, glowing-eyed eunuchs are shown, their leader reaching out with a grasping, skeletal hand. Munyinj passionately declares that the Great Hanlim Institute is different from the others. She explains that although their independence made things difficult, it allowed them to form deep connections with many other organizations. Wee Yonho correctly deduces that this would put the eunuchs in danger, a fact she grimly confirms. She elaborates that the eunuchs have found a new way to gain a connection to a powerful ruling figure without risking a unified opposition. The plan is revealed to be her marriage to Nakmokpung, who is shown reporting to a large seated man he calls father. Nakmokpung informs his father that the arrival of the genius of Hanlim may complicate their plan. His father, identified as Nakji, head of the eunuchs, dismisses the genius as a useless good-for-nothing who just plays Go. Nakmokpung clarifies that the problem isn't the genius himself, but the crowds of challengers he's attracting from all over the nation. He explains that with so many eyes watching the institute, his actions are limited, and it's too risky to make a move. Nakji looks out at the moonlit sky, acknowledging he understands his son's hesitation. Turning back with a serious expression, he asks Nakmokpung if he believes this mission is solely for his own benefit. Nakmokpung breaks into a cold sweat, stunned into silence by the question. Nakji declares that their mission to take over the imperial palace was given to them by the one and only. With unwavering gravity, he states that failing this mission is not an option for either of them. Towering over the terrified Nakmokpung, Nakji reveals he's more afraid of disappointing their master than of death, and his son affirms he understands. Stroking his own long hair, Nakji calmly suggests that sometimes violence is necessary. A confused Nakmokpung looks up, asking what he means. With lightning crackling in his glowing eyes, Nakji gives a chilling order. Use the crowd to their advantage and kill them all. He adds that his order includes the genius of Hanlim, as the scene shifts back to Wee Yonho dozing off. The Great Hanlim Institute is shown in a peaceful, sprawling daytime view. Elsewhere, a powerful elder with a long white beard asks Mun Yuhuan if he still isn't interested in a government position. Seated across a go board, Mun Yuhuan simply apologizes for his refusal. The elder presses him, questioning why he can't see the need to be at the center of power to stop Nakji. Phew. Letting out a long sigh, the elder addresses Mun Yuhuan by name. He stands over Mun Yuhuan, warning him that the eunuch's recent movements have been highly suspicious. The elder elaborates on the growing instability, explaining that Nakji is corrupting both the military and scholar officials. A dark, menacing image of Nakji appears, surrounded by a sinister red aura. Mun Yuhuan looks up thoughtfully, beginning to pose a question. He asks why a eunuch, who cannot have children, would even want to start a revolution, a question the elder confirms is the central mystery. Leaning in, the elder offers a shocking possibility. What if Nakji is serving another master? A brutal montage depicts the bloody political infighting among the palace eunuchs. The narration questions how Nok-ji, with no foundation, managed to survive and ascend through the carnage. Under a blood-red moon, the elder notes how all of Nok-ji's rivals conveniently met their end, as if someone was clearing his path. Manhwa listens intently, but cautiously suggests it might all be a coincidence. The elder disagrees, stating that after long observation, he is now certain someone is helping Nok-ji from behind the scenes. He makes a passionate plea, telling Manhwa that they must unite as one to stand against him. Manhwa remains non-committal, saying he'll think about it more, prompting a sigh from the elder. Changing the subject, the elder asks about the new genius Manhwa has taken in, sparking Manhwa's interest. Manhwa's face beams with pride as he gushes that the genius is amazing and hiding his true potential. Intrigued, the elder asks when he can meet this person, recalling that his daughter, Yunji, was supposed to bring him. Manhwa's attention is drawn to the entrance as he hears an arrival and happily welcomes them in. A disheveled Wee Yeonho, his robes open to reveal a muscular torso, arrives with Mun-eunj and announces his presence. Both Manhwa and the elder look over in confusion at the unexpected arrival. Manhwa apologizes for the early summons, but Wee Yeonho claims he slept well, sarcastically adding that he would have slept better if someone hadn't poured cold water on his face. Amused, Manhwa tells him he's glad and that he wanted to introduce him to someone. The elder, with the long white beard, humbly introduces himself as just an old passerby. Mun-eunj asks about the reason for the visit, and her father explains that the elder wants to play Go. Wee Yeonho immediately and flatly refuses, stating that he can't play. The elder questions his refusal since he's been playing with everyone else, but Wee Yeonho emphatically denies him again. Wee Yeonho clarifies that it's not about refusing to play, but about following the proper order, as others are already waiting their turn. The elder laughs confidently, suggesting he can easily resolve the issue by asking the others to let him go first. Wee Yeonho calmly retorts that using one's status to cut in line isn't a resolution, it's coercion. The elder is visibly taken aback by the young man's direct and unapologetic accusation. Wee Yeonho continues, explaining that people would only agree due to the elder's high social status, not because they actually wanted to. He firmly concludes his point by stating that he values promises and rules above all. The elder grits his teeth, realizing this difficult young man is more principled than he anticipated. When the elder presses him for a solution, Wee Yeonho simply tells him to wait his turn, prompting a frustrated sigh. Mun-eunj steps forward, telling her father she believes she can resolve the situation. As the elder questions her, she confirms she can help, while in the background, a defiant Wee Yeonho gestures "nope" at the elder. Mun-eunj just scoffs to herself, thinking it's absurd for Wee Yeonho to pretend he values rules and promises. She leans in and whispers an offer to Wee Yeonho. If he plays this one game, she'll cancel all his other matches for the day. As she clarifies that she means all of today's games, Wee Yeonho's face contorts in absolute shock and delight. Wee Yeonho feigns reluctance, citing his morals before trying to bargain for tomorrow's games off as well. Mun-eunj instantly shuts him down. With a stern glare, she tells him there's no room for negotiation and to make his choice. Having made his decision, Wee Yeonho enthusiastically sits at the Go board and declares the game can begin. The elder watches with a look of deep annoyance while Manhwa stands by his side. Disgusted by the turn of events, the elder inwardly fumes that Wee Yeonho is not a man of his word. Though he feels like leaving, the elder decides he must stay to see the game through and learn what this genius is really like. With a sharp clack, the elder places a stone on the board, ready to test his opponent's skill. The Go board is shown with the opening moves of the game already played. As night falls, the game continues, with the elder still seated across the board, contemplating his next move. Manhwa approaches and asks the elder if he enjoyed the game, to which the elder responds with a thoughtful hum. The elder remains silent for a moment, clutching his chest as a sinister red aura seems to rise from the Go board itself. He describes Wee Yeonho's style as shockingly violent and swift, a kind of ferocity he's never seen, even in a battlefield game. With a grave expression, he wonders what kind of life the young man must have lived to play with such aggression. The elder declares that Wee Yeonho is not the one he's looking for, finding his laziness and violence undesirable. He calls the visit a waste of time and asks Manhwa why he holds the genius in such high regard, to which Manhwa replies, "Because I saw." Intrigued, the elder asks what exactly he saw. Mun Yuohuan begins to recount a past game where he made a clever prophylactic move against Wu Yono. He recalls feeling proud of the move, believing it was a brilliant play. Confident that the game was won, he admits that he stopped paying close attention to the board. But a flashback shows Wu Yonho remained completely focused, analyzing the state of the game. In that moment of intense concentration, a cosmic vision of stars and galaxies fills Wu Yonho's eye, signifying a moment of profound insight. Back in the present, the Elder and Mun Yuohuan walk through the quiet courtyard at night. The Elder, still skeptical, asks Mun Yuohuan if he is certain about what he witnessed. Mun Yuohuan looks back with unwavering certainty and confirms that he is sure. The Elder lets out a dismissive PFT, turning his back on Mun Yuohuan. He declares that he won't be taking Wu Yonho in, though Mun Yuohuan seems amused by his decision. As they part ways, the Elder says that while his time was wasted on the genius, at least he got to see his old friend, mentioning he has to leave early tomorrow for busy matters. The Elder reminds Mun Yuohuan of the tense atmosphere they've been dealing with lately, and Mun Yuohuan nods in understanding. Looking up at the full moon, the Elder laments what a shame the situation is. The story transitions to a serene night scene, with a full moon shining brightly through silhouetted tree branches. A large man with long black hair, seen from behind, remarks that the night is perfect. A masked subordinate informs the large man that the preparations are complete, to which he simply replies, "All right." Flanked by masked assassins in the woods, the large man with gold chains stands with an imposing presence. With a confident smirk, the large man gives the order to get it done quickly. Pat, pat, pat! Assassins leap into action, their movements cutting through the night air. A squad of masked assassins descends from the sky, brandishing their weapons. A lone guard lets out a massive yawn, completely oblivious to the impending danger. His yawn is cut short as a bead of sweat rolls down his face. He stares in sudden terror. The large man with the gold chains makes his grand, intimidating entrance. A brutal massacre ensues as assassins with glowing blue energy tear through the guards, who cry out in agony. One last guard falls amidst the bodies of his fallen comrades. The large man smirks, remarking that this is why they should have listened to him when he was being nice. Pat, he raises his hand and roars for his men to get them all. Looking up with a sinister grin, he declares that tonight, the Great Hanlum Institute will become a prison that not even a rat can escape. As the scene shifts to Wu Yonho groaning in his sleep, a woman with black hair and red ribbons appears with a serious expression. The large man's face contorts with rage as he vows to teach that bitch a lesson today. The Institute's courtyard is filled with captured individuals, all bound and kneeling before armed guards. A bound Mun Yuohuan shouts up at his captors, demanding to know the meaning of this. The large man claims they received information about suspicious activity at the Institute, noting the recent visits from high authority people, but a captive shouts back, asking how that's suspicious at all. With a smug look, the large man asks what other reason there could be for people with political and martial power to gather. He declares the only possibility is a revolution, leaving the captive stunned. What? Mun Yuohuan furiously refutes the accusation, yelling that they're only there to play go. The captives look on in fear as their leader stands before them, bound by thick red ropes. Mun Yuohuan insists he's serious and brings up the rumors about the genius, but the large man dismisses them, saying rumors can be easily fabricated. The camera pans over the frightened, bound captives, including Mun Yuohuan and Mun Yunj. The large man asks where the genius is, and his masked subordinate asks who he's looking for, clarifying that he means the genius. Another subordinate reports that there are no more people remaining in the building. The large man muses that the genius must have run off early, calling him a lucky bastard for escaping before they arrived. He addresses the kneeling prisoners, falsely promising to free and apologize to them if no problem is found. A subordinate kneels before his leader, announcing with a clatter, "I found it." He presents a book labeled Signatures, claiming it's an agreement signed by those planning the revolution. What? Mun Yuohuan and the other captives cry out in shock, insisting they've never done such a thing. The large man holds up the book as damning evidence, declaring there is proof right in front of them. Mun Yuohuan stares with cold fury, realizing they were framed from the very beginning and have been had. The other captives panic, desperately proclaiming their innocence and ignorance of any revolutionary activities. A bound man with long white hair, identified as Nok Mok Pung, coolly observes that this is an interesting incident. The large man squints, recognizing the new captive. The captive is dramatically revealed to be Royal Head Inspector Li Wangya, the Emperor's brother, who shouts his name. With a furious glare, Li Wangya roars at the man to call him by his proper title, the Royal Head Inspector. The other captives look on with renewed hope, believing they are saved now that the Emperor's brother is here to witness their innocence. The large man brings his hands together in a gesture of false respect, claiming he wouldn't have done this if he'd known Li Wangya was present. Li Wangya tells him he is not one to hold grudges and orders him to free everyone. The large man stalls, asking to pose a question first, which an irritated Li Wangya allows. He leans in and asks Li Wangya why he planned this revolution, leaving the inspector utterly shocked. With a terrifying wide grin, the large man mocks him, asking if he really thought he wouldn't know he was here, as Li Wangya stammers in disbelief. Thud! Two guards force the Royal Head Inspector to his knees. Li Wangya explodes in a fit of rage, screaming that the man's arrogance knows no bounds and vowing that he will not get away with framing him. The large man calmly corrects him, explaining that he won't be reporting this because he's never going to see His Majesty again. Surrounded by his guards, a large man with long black hair condemns a group of bound prisoners to immediate execution for planning a revolution. The captured elder with the long white beard furiously curses his captor, who smugly dismisses his pleas as mere begging. The large man smirks, announcing that before the mass execution, someone specific has to die first. He names his target, a defiant, bound Munyunj, who glares back at him. Kneeling before her, he cruelly tells Munyunj that her rejection of him is the reason everyone is going to die. He leans in menacingly, asking if she's finally willing to change her mind. TSK, visibly annoyed by her silent defiance, the large man scowls. Munyunj shouts that she would rather die than marry a man like him. In response to her defiance, the large man slowly licks his lips with a depraved expression. He grabs her face, assuring her with a cruel grin that he won't kill her. Instead, he promises to make her wish for death, vowing to inflict a pain 100 times worse than anything she can imagine. Munyunj declares she would rather die than be humiliated by him, but he calmly questions if that's truly her decision. He warns her that if she kills herself, her father, Manhwa, will be the one to suffer the torment she escaped. He continues his threat, stating that if her father also dies, the rest of the captives will endure the suffering instead. The threat escalates as he reminds her that all family members of revolutionaries are executed, daring her to go ahead. Munyunj grinds her teeth in helpless fury, trapped by his vile ultimatum. Kia. He yanks her hair back with a sadistic laugh, mocking that he would enjoy having more people to entertain him as she cries out in pain. Her father, Munyunj, screams her name in utter despair and helplessness. With a chilling smile, the large man gets ready to begin his cruel torture. As she's dragged away, Munyunj desperately pleads for somebody, anybody, to help her. Looking up at the night sky, her tear-filled eyes catch sight of a nearby rooftop. Her expression shifts to one of faint surprise as she notices something unexpected. On a nearby roof, Wee Yonho is seen running, clearly making his escape. He effortlessly leaps over a wall, continuing his hurried retreat. He lands gracefully on another rooftop, poised to flee the scene entirely. Someone calls his name, Wee Yonho, and he skids to a halt, looking down at the hostage crisis he was trying to ignore. Panting and sweating, Wee Yunho's expression reveals he was caught in the middle of a hasty retreat. He throws his head back and laughs maniacally on the rooftop, prompting a furious Munyunji to demand what he's doing. With a crazed look, he shouts back that it should be obvious. He's booking it. He sarcastically asks the bewildered crowd what's wrong with saying he's running away, when that's exactly what he's doing. Waving his hand dismissively, Wee Yonho claims he's not skilled enough, and that acting like he saw nothing is the best choice. With a cheerful wave goodbye, he tells everyone to keep doing what they're doing as he turns to leave. Munyunj, Munyhwan, and the elder stare in unified disgust, thinking he is an absolute piece of garbage. The large man bellows for him to stop. Pointing up at the rooftop, he warns Wee Yonho that he's already involved and won't be safe anywhere, but Wee Yonho seems unconcerned. The captor insists it won't be hard to find him, but Wee Yonho casually tells him to look for him later. Furious at his insolence, the large man snarls an order to his men, "Get him!" A masked subordinate responds immediately, leaping toward the rooftop with blinding speed. The subordinate flings a dagger through the air, aimed directly at Wee Yonho. Panicked, Munyunj screams at him to run. Wee Yonho looks back, with a sudden, serious expression, the time for jokes now over. As another assassin attacks, he wonders aloud what he's supposed to do when she first asked for help and is now telling him to flee. He dodges the attack with incredible speed, leaving behind an afterimage that stuns his opponent. Hob! The masked assassin grunts in surprise, having completely lost sight of his target. Appearing above his foe, Wee Yeonho unleashes a devastating downward strike, crackling with brilliant blue energy. Brushing his hair back, Wee Yeonho calmly comments, "Goodness," as if the fight were a mere inconvenience. Below, Mununj stares up, her eyes wide with utter shock and disbelief at his hidden power. Standing victoriously on the rooftop under the full moon, Wee Yeonho looks down at the fallen assassin and calls her a strange woman,